The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Is your cold making it hard for you to get to sleep and leading to a bad morning? Switch to Mucinex Night Shift for fast, powerful nighttime multi-symptom cold and flu relief. Mucinex Night Shift fights your worst nighttime symptoms to help you get to sleep and wake up ready to go. Mucinex Night Shift. It's comeback season. Use as directed.
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation. Woo! Weekend's over. Time to get into the grind. Just a reminder, join Broken Jarhead on Facebook Live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for the Veterans Podcast Awards. They'll be doing the presentations live on Facebook. So thank you again for your support. Today, I'm a little late in closing out the month of September and the importance of it being Suicide Awareness Month. We always hear about the 22 veterans a day committing suicide, and there are, of course, a number of nonprofit organizations that are aligned with this issue. The issue isn't having nonprofits stood up for them. It is the quality of care they are receiving or choosing not to get out of fear of having some kind of stigma put on them. In 2003, 2004, I was in the Big Red One, and I was with a great unit in a beautiful place called Al Ramadi, Iraq. This place has been the subject of at least a few chapters of a few books about the war in Iraq. And Oliver North was present with us there to see firsthand how insane this place was. It was at this time that, unbeknownst to me, I crossed paths with our next guest. She was aligned with the mighty Hurricanes of the 1124 Infantry, who our brigade now had as part of our task force. She has gone on to become a licensed professional counselor and national certified counselor, specializing in military issues and combat-related trauma. She provides intervention and evidence-based treatments for post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, moral injury, depression, combat operational stress, and other diagnoses. She is certified clinician in cognitive processing therapy and prolonged exposure therapy, and has 20 plus years experience serving active duty military, veterans, military retirees, and family members. She is a certified group psychotherapist and active American Group Psychotherapy Association member. She is a combat veteran and a published researcher. So without further ado, let's get Virginia Cruse on here. All right, welcome to the show from McAllen, Texas. Miss Virginia Cruse. How are you today, Virginia?
Man, I am pumped and jacked to be with the Misfit Nation this morning, Rich. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. It's been a winding road to get you here, and both of us had some scheduling conflicts, but here we are. The sun's up, we're all alive, and things are going well.
You know, no complaints. We're both busy bees. It happens.
Yes. So why don't you lean on in and tell us a little bit about you and about your work?
Oh, for sure. But before I jump in, I want to congratulate you on your Veteran Podcast Awards nominations. I know you're not going to brag on yourself. So I'm going to elbow in and, now that we're recording, I'm going to go ahead and elbow in and brag on you. So congratulations. And I look forward to tuning into that on October 5th. So I'll tell you about myself, but I'll be straight up. My origin story is not as cool as your other guests. I didn't start out wanting to be a mental health therapist. Nobody goes into this line of work for the money or the fame. But in 2008, after my third deployment to Iraq, I was really at my own worst point with my PTSD. To make a long story as short as possible, I had an incident at work and I was command directed to see psychiatry. So I went to a military treatment facility, and the psychiatrist I saw was an active duty military officer. He was a male colonel. At that point, I was not okay. I was really overwhelmed. I was suicidal. I was drinking like a fish. I was drinking 2 to 3 bottles of wine. I lived in Europe. Not that makes that much alcohol okay, but it certainly didn't go as noticed as it might have in other duty stations. But I was drinking a phenomenal amount of alcohol, and I knew that there was something seriously wrong with my mental health, but I did not know what that was. And it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. So I talked with the psychiatrist for the better part of an hour. I answered his questions, I eyeballed him, and I poured my heart out. And at the end of our time together, he looked right at me. He said, "Oh, Virginia, I'd really like to help you, but there's nothing I can do if you choose not to be honest with me." And was a little bewildered by that. And so he further qualified it by saying, we all know that women don't serve in combat. And I really can't help you if you don't tell me the truth. So this was 2008. And I was, So suffice to say, that did not end well. I was escorted out of the building, and that psychiatrist labeled me with something called a personality disorder. He completely dismissed my combat experience and my PTSD experience. And I think the worst part of that is I really felt like I was kicked while I was already down. But it wasn't by just, anybody. It was by another service member who was supposed to have my back. And that betrayal cut me so deeply. I really internalized that. And at that point, I really thought about giving up. And, I kind of had a come to Jesus moment. I really figured out at that point that if I did not figure out how to help myself, I was literally going to die, either from insanity or by my own hand. And so I enrolled in graduate school. And 13 years later, here I am talking to you. So one of my first gigs after I was licensed is I got a teaching job. And I started teaching active duty service members about PTSD and usually alcohol abuse, what we call co-occurring disorders. That just means that two things are happening at the same time and they both suck. And so what I found was, I was given this curriculum to teach about PTSD, and it was very accurate. It talked about the amygdala and the frontal lobes and all the brain science, but it was absolutely not relatable. And so I thought back to myself, what was it that I needed personally when I was at my lowest point with my own PTSD? And what I really needed at that point was I needed to understand what was happening to me. Is this normal or am I batshit? I needed to know the no kidding options. How do I get better? And then I really needed step-by-step guidance on how to implement that. Basically, I needed an NCO. I needed some hip pocket training, and I needed to understand how to talk to my family because I had already nuked my personal relationships because we do that with PTSD. And I needed to know how to talk to my chain of command to get the support that I needed. And I really needed action steps for afterwards. How do I keep from relapsing? So my students were amazing, and I've taught, well over 1,000 service members my curriculum at this point. And they stayed on me. They stayed on me for years. And finally, I published a Soldier's Guide to PTSD this year. And this is it's subtitled How to No Shit Reclaim Your Life. So, because I think language matters.
It does.
Language matters. You're an instructor. Your wife's a teacher. And service members, soldiers, Marines, even Coasties are pretty smart. we are like a pretty smart group. Nobody goes into the military for the money or the fame, because that would be foolish. We are there, we are there for a reason. We are there with heart. And, you're an instructor. I mean, we are teaching service members unbelievably complex things that are a lot more complex than PTSD. PTSD is, without a doubt, the most straightforward, logical, easy to understand mental health disorder, which just means that our shit's out of order. There's no judgment with that word disorder. I know a lot of people take exception to that. But it's really easy to understand if it's explained in a way that is not unnecessarily complicated. And that's what I think a lot of military instructors do well, what NCOs do well, is, always that question, are you picking up what I'm putting down?
Right.
And, when it comes to PTSD, when it comes to moral injury, when it comes to suicide, depression, how to talk to family members, no one is asking the very fundamental question, are you picking up what I'm putting down? We've got a lot of researchers who are all heart, by the way. The researchers I know are absolutely phenomenal. There's billions of dollars in PTSD research. We have the VA, the Department of Veteran Affairs, which is, not known for being, really quick on the uptake, has already approved 3 evidence-based treatments for PTSD. 3 of them. And what an evidence-based treatment means is that it works for most people most of the time. So if you think of like the Pareto rule, think about that as like an 80-20. It works for most people most of the time. We have prolonged exposure therapy, cognitive processing therapy, and EMDR. And because they're approved by the VA, those are widely available. So you can go to the VA, you can go to Google and find a therapist and ask for those evidence-based treatments by name. And what we know is they most work for most people most of the time. And you got a pathway within 8 to 12 sessions to reclaim your life. There is a solution out there. This is not rocket surgery. This is very well known. But no one's picking up what we're putting down. We got a bunch of folks running around with a puzzle piece. Pardon me. Running around with their puzzle piece. I'm going to fix veterans with equine therapy. And now calm down, listeners. Don't send me a strongly worded email. I love my horse. I got it. I love your horse too. Or I'm going to help with this. I'm going to do talk there. We got all these people running around with puzzle pieces. But I think what helped me the most personally, and what helps my clients the most, and at this point we got lots of them. I'm no spring chicken anymore. It's just being able to understand, and normalize my symptoms. What is happening to me? Is this normal, or do I need to be locked up, like legit? Are people picking up what we're putting down? And then, okay, here's the steps. 1, 2, 3. Here's the 3 evidence-based treatments that work most of the time. And if those don't work, by the way, we have, often that is called treatment-resistant PTSD, which doesn't mean that you're FUBAR. It just means that we got to try a different method. We got to try a different avenue of approach. It's very logical, very, very logical. And there is so much money and so much great research. And we can do MDMA, we can do faith-based therapy. I mean, marijuana. There are so many different avenues of approach to treating PTSD. It's off the cuff. There is treatment out there. And sometimes we just need a guide, somebody to hold our hand and just say, hey, here's what we've got going. And it's just, our book is just hip pocket training. That's what we've got. So that's how this book got born, how our audio book got born. We put it into audiobook because I'll be honest with you, Rich, I haven't, this is embarrassing, but this is very true. I haven't read a book in forever. I just don't. I'm an audio learner. And I listen to everything. Even when I have a book or an article that I'm reading, I put it into a program on my phone to read it to me, with one of those creepy Alexa voices. I don't read a lot, and I don't know a lot of soldiers who do. And that's not because we're stupid. It's because who's got time for that? But there's one thing everyone does have, and that's commute. And so, yes. We're taking advantage of our commute and listening. We created an audiobook. We're putting our book into Spanish, and we're really looking forward to that in 2022. And it's not because there's a big market for it. It's because no one is doing it. And here I am. I guess I'm one of those hippie folks that believes that everybody, no kidding, deserves to have excellent access to mental health care, even if your first language isn't English. Ooh, So I'm here in the Valley. I'm here in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, and it is my absolute privilege to serve this community and to serve the veterans and active duty service members who serve here on border operations. And we've got a lot of folks who are Spanish speakers. And if they are not, their family members are. And so I'm really passionate about equal access. And we don't have a lot of information on mental health writ large that is available in Spanish, and that's not okay. And so, our little corner of the globe here, we're just trying to unfuck that and make this incredibly straightforward information available and make it accessible for everyone who is looking for it.
Definitely. In 2004, I was in Ramadi, Iraq, and probably our last few weeks there, we were doing a right seat, left to drive with our replacement unit there. And I was with the Marines, and we got attacked, and our PSD was right next to me. And one of the soldiers, he was a Mexican-American, spoke perfect English up to that point. He got blown out of the vehicle and couldn't speak English anymore. Oh, and that goes right to your point where we need to have both people need to have access to the health and be able to read things and be able to understand what's being told to them. Because honestly, from that point, I don't know if he ever got turned back or was able, because they separated us right away there, and you hardly ever see people again once they leave. But it was really weird at that point. And then when we came home from that deployment, the alleged professionals in 2004 at Fort Riley, Kansas, told us none of us could have PTSD because we're not far enough away from the event yet. Oh, and I said, wow. I said, that's a great thing to say to us. And I just walked out. I walked out of the briefing. I said, I'm done with you. I'm going to go to my next briefing. And I just drove on till 2016 when I finally went and got help. So.
Oh, legit. Rich, thank you so much for sharing that. And that's a really good point. So there's something called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM. It's this big ass purple book. We call it the DSM-5. It's got to have the number 5 on it. And that is the guide that is used to diagnose all mental health disorders. Now, disorder is that is a clinical word. And I want to be real Pacific on that. It's, as opposed to being Atlantic. That all that means is that your shit's out of order, is that your symptoms are getting in the way of your walking, talking, everyday life. It doesn't mean you're fucked up. That is not a judgment word. It's a clinical word. Okay. So the DSM-5 got a major revamp in 2013. So this is really important to know because the definition of PTSD changed a lot between the DSM-4 or the IV back then. It was in Roman numerals back in the day. Now it's not, for other reasons. But the DSM-5 changed a lot in 2013, making it a lot easier to diagnose. So people who were diagnosed with adjustment disorders, and that's something that a lot of your listeners are going to see in their medical records, this adjustment disorder, which really feels judgmental, by the way. You see, I had that in my own medical records, and I was like, the fuck, what? What? And that hurt my feelings and made me feel sad on the inside. And, it wasn't till I went after 2013 and got my CMP exam, my compensation and pension exam. So if your listeners have gotten a CMP exam, or, like got read some bullshit back in 2004 or before 2013, now is the time, friends, to go and get a do-over. Go ahead, go to va.gov and reapply for compensation and pension, because things have changed a lot, and you absolutely deserve to get the help that you need. So thank you for sharing that. That is, I appreciate you being really, I appreciate you being vulnerable about that. I know a lot of people feel, queasy about sharing their own personal experience with PTSD.
Yeah, well, for a while, like I said earlier, I kind of denied having any issues. I thought I was just a normal dude, and my wife and daughter kept saying, you changed, and you don't listen to them because it's whatever. I went to war and back. I'm all right. Let's go to Applebee's and have a shake or whatever. And then year after my fourth deployment, I finally realized, I said, yeah, something is wrong with me. I'm kind of messed up. I'm outside my mind right now. And it still wasn't until after I got my CMP, they diagnosed me with PTSD, and that they sent me to the VA hospital to meet the mental health professionals. And the first thing they wanted to do was give me medication. I told them, no, I'm not taking medication. I've seen all these zombies in the hallways. I said, send me somewhere else for treatment. There's got to be a treatment without medicine. And they said, oh, we don't do it here, but we'll recommend you. So I went to a local place here, and he did the EMDR on me, and that helped me. That helped me exponentially, and I've been fine. I've been able to manage it ever since then.
I love hearing that. And what your experience was is the norm and not the exception. And it's true, there is no medicine. There is no medication out there that is specifically going to help PTSD. There's meds out there that'll help the symptoms. We give you an anti-anxiety med or a sleep med or an antidepressant, but the only way out is through. When it comes to PTSD, we need to process our trauma. We need to process it. And like that expression, you don't want to know how the sausage is made. It's ugly. This shit ain't easy. But let's get for real for a minute. It's not forever either. I know that it's, for most of us, I'm sure just for me, I'll just speak for myself. The idea of talking about my trauma with a mental health professional, and that mental health professional might be a pogue, they might be a civilian, they might have been in school, sent for all of their life. But, the idea of talking with a civilian about my PTSD is terrifying. That's terrifying. And what I want to tell your listeners, and this from experience, is, that shit ain't easy, but it's not forever either. It is literally 8 to 12 sessions in an intensive environment, like an inpatient environment. That means that you go to a program and you go every day and you stay in the hospital, or an intensive outpatient, meaning that you get to sleep at home in your own bed with your own dog. And, you're doing it every day. We can knock out those PTSD symptoms. Again, 8 to 12 sessions. We can see folks 3 times a week for between an hour and 90 minutes. And within 3 weeks, and again, evidence-based treatments work for most people most of the time. So if I had an 80% chance of winning the lottery, brother, I'd play.
I'm playing today.
Okay, I play all day. But here's the thing, we got 3 courses of action.
Right.
So if COA 1 doesn't work, you go to COA 2. If that doesn't work, you go to COA 3. If by some statistical, miracle, you are an outlier in all 3 of those evidence-based treatments, this is super logical. It means one of 2 things. It means, A, we don't have the right diagnosis. Maybe you have a co-occurring disorder. So that's a fancy ass word that we use that means that there are 2 things that are going on. So we have co-occurring disorders that happen with PTSD. So think about it like this, bro. PTSD always comes to the party with friends. It's a real joiner that way. And the most prevalent, what I see most often with PTSD are drug and alcohol use disorder. So too much drinking, too much drugging, depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, and eating disorders. And I see a lot of eating disorders. I'm talking to all your male listeners out there. So we're talking binging, purging, and especially my active duty folks. We see this a lot because they're, well, even with the new with the new PFT for the Army, there's a lot of body dysmorphia and there's a lot of stuff going on that really rewards rapid weight loss within the active duty community. Let's just put it that way. So we see a lot of eating disorders. And that doesn't mean that you're beyond hope. That just means that we might have to deal with something else. What it could also be is something called moral injury. And moral injury, this is one of those things that we don't talk about a lot. It's super uncomfortable, but we need to. Because moral injury it's not a diagnosis that we're going to see in the DSM-5. And I remember when I first started looking at the research on moral injury, and this is by Brett Litz and his team, and he's out at the University, Boston University, and the VA out in Boston. When I first started reading his work, I was just floored. It was... I thought to myself, how is nobody talking about moral injury? How is this not a thing? Because his writing it's written as if he got together with a bunch of us around a campfire and we all got piss drunk together and he took really excellent notes.
He was the coherent one, yes.
And I know you're picking up what I'm putting down because we've all experienced that. Okay. And see, PTSD is rooted in fear. And that means that our brain performs like straight up acrobatic feats to keep us alive, so fight, flight, freeze. Yeah. But moral injury is a little different because it's rooted in shame. So I love Brené Brown. She talks about the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is I did something wrong. I kicked a kitten. I hurt your feelings. I tripped on a lady. And shame, I am something wrong. There is something fundamentally wrong with me because I really am a monster, because only an animal would, only a monster would, fill in the blank. And so we can see how moral injury can really fuck with our walking, talking, everyday life, especially, friend, the way that we interact with our family, especially our kids. And this is important to talk about in a real and authentic way because this is what makes us legit consider suicide. So, moral injury stems from those events that violate our deeply rooted expectations of ourselves and of others. So this is born in the should, how I should have acted, how things should be, how things should work in war and in life. And with moral injury, Brett Litz and his team kind of tidily put it into 3 categories. That's combat loss. So that's when we lose a service member downrange, lose a battle buddy. Perpetration. So those are acts of commission or omission, things we should have done, things we could have done, didn't do, other people should have done, didn't do. So this is where we've got war crimes. Those are super uncomfortable to talk about, but they're ubiquitous and we need to start talking about it. And then leadership betrayal. And, and I remember back in like 2010, 2010, toxic leadership was the big buzzword at all the war colleges, and it's not anymore. So I guess that was fixed, but whatever. But leadership betrayal. So everybody makes mistakes. Got it. But leadership betrayal has to do with behaviors that are especially capricious, risky, and they entail wholly unfair treatment by our leadership. And you were in Ramadi in 2004. I was too. So that's pretty far from the flagpole. Can we just talk about that for a minute?
Yeah.
So, the consequences are horrific because toxic leaders, they thrive in chaotic situations with little oversight, like Ramadi. Not that I'm bitter. And like Ramadi 2004. And it's highly unlikely with this leadership betrayal that there's going to be justice because that is not how the military works. So harassment, hazing, unlawful orders, sexual assault, they're more in check the closer we are to the flagpole. But not everybody got to chill in Bagram, okay? So that means in the field, and depending on where you're at, and calm down, Bagram vets, I'm not saying that you didn't have a trauma, calm down, don't write me an email. But, in the field and when there's when there is little oversight, it really is game on for sleeve psychopaths, basically, who are literally wielding the power of life and death.
Definitely. Yeah.
Napoleon, I love reading military biographies. And one of my favorite quotes from Napoleon is, "It's amazing what a man will do for a piece of colored ribbon or a cab or a bronze star or any other medal for that matter." So, wanting to go outside the wire, every day so that they can get their cab, risking the safety of troops, alienating a single troop to the point where they commit suicide, threatening troops with violence, just being batshit crazy. Toxic leaders are just, anyway, I digress, brother.
Yeah,
But
I think I've seen all that in the Ramadi realm between Blue Diamond and Fob jumps in Junction City there.
Unbelievable.
And then, of course, Combat Outpost. I've seen everything, every form of leadership in all those bases. And, of course, on the streets. The streets was a whole other world. Once you're outside the wall is a whole different world. And seeing people lose their lids out there was a little crazy. And it helped me feel like I was doing the right things a lot of times. So it helped out sometimes. But when you're talking about the risks people will take for a reward, if you haven't seen the Netflix show Squid Game, that'll bring all that to you.
Oh, for real? I haven't. Tell me more.
Squid Game is a pretty good show. It's based off Korean children's games. It has subtitles. You can get the dub version on Netflix, of course. But it's very deep and interesting series. It's about nine episodes, and you'll be drawn in right away. Especially during episode 1, you'll learn games that you used to play are now horrific in your mind.
Wow, I love that. I'm always looking for resources to give to clients to help understand our human nature, and so I'm always on the prowl for podcasts, for shows, So if you've got anything, please send them on to me. I'm always on the prowl for that sort of thing. Thank you.
Definitely, no problem.
Squid Game, got it down.
All right. So you said you'd want to just speak about a one-pager on the book if you want to do that.
Oh, snap. I'd be happy to do that. Thank you for asking. I really appreciate that. So we do have, this is available for your listeners too. So if your listeners go to thesoldiersguide.com, so that's thesoldiersguide.com, they can get a preview copy, a free preview copy of the book. You sign up for our newsletter, because I believe that absolutely la-di-da-di, everybody deserves to understand what our symptoms are. And within the preview copy that you can get, we go through what PTSD isn't, what it is. And when you sign up for the newsletter, you can get access to a copy of a free PDF. We have a workbook available, and I give it to all my clients. This is really great to have before you go into your C&P exam, to understand these are my symptoms, and here is the criteria upon which this diagnosis of PTSD is based. I think empowerment is so important, and it's written in a way that hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down. But yeah, in the introduction, just to give your listeners kind of a flavor of what we are putting down, I would love to read the introduction to the book, because this is not for everybody, legit, and that's okay. We're not trying to be all things to all people. I can't even be all things to one person most of the time. Yeah. But it is what it is. This book is not for everybody. But yeah, I'll give you a flavor.
All right.
So here's the introduction. This is from The Soldier's Guide to PTSD, written by yours truly. So, dear soldier, so we don't know each other. I only know that you've picked up this book, and for the moment, you're reading it. I appreciate that, because talking about PTSD, kind of my thing. After my 3rd deployment, I was definitely not okay, and nobody knew how to help me. My chain of command, my doctors, my family, or me. I worked hard to get better, and I made lots of mistakes along the way. Eventually, I got my master's degree in mental health counseling, and I started teaching troops. Now, I am convinced that when we know the no shit facts about PTSD, we make more informed choices and get better faster. So I'm going to write this book directly to you as if you're sitting in my class. Now, my classes feel pretty uncomfortable, and that's because PTSD is an unpleasant topic, and we don't like to talk about it. I get that, but that's not good for us. Your life is at stake, my friend. I'm not going to fuck around. I intend to be as straightforward as I know how to, because I know PTSD can kill you. We're going to talk about suicide, war crimes, depression, relationships, and a lot more. See, I'm one of those therapists who came to the profession later in life. I'm not here to waste your time. I'm going to teach you everything I wish I knew when I started my own journey. And while you're not going to like it, probably, it's what you need to hear. Now, I know PTSD is an ass kicker, and I realize that you might not be up to reading a book, but maybe you could try this one, so I'll keep it short. Another reason I wrote this book is that a lot of service members know we have PTSD, but we don't know what to do about it. Maybe we believe lies, like PTSD never goes away. We continue to feel hopeless. This book might find its way into the hands of someone who never knew help was there, and it may show you where to find it. Oh, one last thing, I swear a lot. I'm going to say that up front because a lot of folks are uncomfortable with coarse language, and that is legit okay. I respect it. This isn't the right book for you. I don't swear because I'm trying to be cool or provocative. Spoiler alert, I'm not. And I'm not trying to hurt your feelings or make you feel sad on the inside. Legit, not swearing is inauthentic for me. And because nothing less than your life is at stake, I'm not going to apologize for what I have to say. Listen, there are a lot of great guides out there for civilians and clinicians, but this book's for service members. It's from one soldier to another. It's from me to you. Because if someone had given me this book back in 2005, it would have saved me years of bullshit. Yours sincerely, Virginia Cruse.
Awesome. Thank you, Virginia. That was an awesome read-in, and I think if they heard that, they're going to run out and download their preview copy and probably start the PDF workbook they have as well to help them on their way if they're not already getting help.
I hope so. Everyone deserves to get better from PTSD. You know, the thing I hear most often, and I talk about it there in the intro, is this rumor. So there are a lot of rumors about PTSD that are absolutely not true, but will fuck with your head. And the number one rumor I hear over and over is that PTSD has no cure. So add to that, I'll always have PTSD. I'll never get better. The symptoms might go away, but the PTSD will always be there. And these beliefs are so widely held, brother, that most people give up before getting started. We just give up. And that legit is not a thing. There are those 3 evidence-based treatments for PTSD that are approved by the VA. So remember, we've got prolonged exposure therapy, cognitive processing therapy, and the EMDR that you experienced, meaning that they've all been proven to work, most people, most of the time. Now, using an evidence-based treatment, I want to mention, is really important because evidence-based treatments, they're based on peer-reviewed scientific evidence. That means that researchers conduct rigorous studies using scientific methods. They document their research in those peer-reviewed scientific journals. Then other researchers conduct other additional scientific studies to see if that treatment, that evidence-based treatment, is in fact successful. So it's a lot like how drugs are tested by the FDA. It's those double-blind, randomized trials over a very long period of time with a lot of scrutiny. So when a therapy method is recognized as an evidence-based treatment, it's a big fucking deal. And
yes,
so
it is.
I want, and I'm kind of, I'm foot stomping on this because there's no sense in going to get help for your PTSD and then not getting the help that you deserve. If you got cancer, you don't go to your PCM, you go to a no shit oncologist. You go to somebody who specializes in cancer because cancer will kill you. Well, guess what? PTSD will kill you. So go to a no shit PTSD specialist and ask Ask for these evidence-based treatments by name. There is no sense in fucking around doing talk therapy. I mean, and I'm not saying that talk therapy doesn't work for other things. You want to lie on the couch, talk about your mother, knock yourself out, do it. But for PTSD, that does not work. But we know what does. We know what does. Now, those are the 3 evidence-based treatments that are approved by the VA. But there are a lot more out there. And I want to encourage people to get specific help so that you can have a breakthrough with your PTSD. And then, go talk about your daddy issues afterwards.
And like you said, not all treatment is one size fits all. So each therapist and each treatment has to be good for you. And if it's not working after 1 or 2 visits, you got to raise your hand and say, this isn't the one for me. I got to go somewhere else.
Oh, legit. Rich, I'm so glad you mentioned that. And this is kind of an uncomfortable truth. And I talk about this in the book too. This is why this book isn't for everybody. So yeah, when it comes to finding a therapist, like for example, I am not the right therapist for most people. And that is okay. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the therapeutic relationship is a lot more important than my ego. It's a lot more important. You getting the help you deserve is a lot more important than my fucking feelings. Okay. And not everybody is great at their job. Just because you got letters at the end of your name doesn't make you a genius. Some people are legit not good at their job. They're just not. Yeah. And I love what you said that, if you are not clicking with your therapist, there isn't that strong therapeutic relationship there. It might be time to move on. It might not be you. Now, legit, we got to look at the other side of that too. If you've gone to a dozen programs and all this stuff, and the common denominator is you, then maybe the problem's in the mirror. But that's that's a story for another day. And
at that point, you have to own it.
Oh, let me tell you, I've been through that. I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. I've been in recovery for a long time for alcohol use, and ouch. Yeah, you're singing my song, but that's okay. That's okay. We get the help that we need when we need it.
Definitely. So Virginia, we're way over my usual time, but that's okay. It's going to be a good long episode. And it has a lot of good information for our listeners, because most of the listeners will get value from this and hopefully share it with their brothers and sisters out there that really need this. I want to thank you for taking your time to come on. And if you have 3 things you can tell Joe or Josephine as they're fighting with this stuff, what would that be?
Oh, thank you so much. The first thing I would tell you is to go to thesoldiersguide.com. Go ahead and get your free preview copy, because we go line by line through the criteria for PTSD, because I want you to understand that what you're going through is normal. And when we say normal, that doesn't mean it tickles. It means that we expect that when it comes to PTSD. You're not going batshit crazy. What you're experiencing, unfortunately, is normal. So it is what it is. Second thing I would want you to know is that we have a solution. We have a solution. We have evidence-based treatment. We've talked about them at length. Make sure that when you go and find a therapist, find the help that you need, that you are asking for these evidence-based treatments, like by name, just like you did, Rich, when you're like, nah, you know what? Zombie drugs, not for me. Right. You dove in. And the last thing I would want Joe and Josephine to know is, you know what? Treatment doesn't tickle. It sucks, but it's not forever. Suck it the fuck up. Okay. It is not forever. It is 8 to 12 sessions of shit. It is going to be really hard, but it is not harder than what you have been through. You absolutely can reclaim your life from PTSD. You can reclaim your relationships. You can reclaim your self-esteem, your work ethic. You can reclaim your life from PTSD. We have ways to do it. Connect with other people. Oh, can I have a 4th thing, Rich, please?
Go ahead.
Listen, if you could figure out, Joe and Josephine, if you could figure out how to do this shit on your own, you probably would have already done it. That's not a thing. That is not a thing. We heal in community. We do not heal in isolation. So I'm going to encourage you to connect with another person who is outside of you to get the help that you need. There's no doing this shit on our own. Connect with others, connect with your brothers and sisters, start talking, get in a peer support group. And you wouldn't go out on a convoy without your fire team. You wouldn't go Bergdahl it and just be alone and unafraid. Don't do that with PTSD. Don't do it. Look what happened to Bergdahl.
That was a good one. He wasn't alone and unafraid. He was just a different name I have for him. But anyway.
Yeah, 6 feet tall and bulletproof. That didn't work so well.
Yeah, he's a special fella. Thanks for that advice. If someone does read the book, and then even though you said you're not right for everyone after reading the book, and they want to get in touch with you and have maybe a one-on-one with you, how do they do that?
Oh, they can pop me an email at thesoldiersguide.com. You can just go ahead and look me up. Connect with my Facebook page is probably the best place to do it. So our book, I have an amazing team, by the way. Katie Salidas, Barbie McRae, and Nicole Tribbett. We've got a team of true believers over here. We are just batshit crazy. We're on a mission. We're batty. We're on a mission. Connect with us through the Facebook page because we have eyes on that all the time. We have a Twitter page too, but I'll be straight up. I haven't really leapt into the 90s when it comes to most things, but especially when it comes to social media. But my team is amazing. Connect with us that way. And we'd be happy to help you find a no shit mental health expert in your area who can help you because there's no reason not to. We have the tools. The only thing that's holding us back is lack of information and lack of oomph.
There it is. Perfect. Thank you, Virginia. Thanks for taking some of your Saturday to hang out with me. And I hope you have a great rest of your Texas day.
Oh, snap. Thank you so much for your time today, Rich. It is really cool to talk with the Misfit Nation. I wish you the best of luck for the Veterans Podcast Awards on the 5th. I will be tuning in on the Facebook page. And best of luck and congratulations again on your nominations.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.
That was awesome chatting with Virginia and learning her no-shit approach to tackling mental illness and PTSD in particular. Thanks for sharing your book and your advice with the audience. Look forward to seeing your success in tackling this demon in the future. So you know how we do this. Thanks for taking some of your time to spend with us on the Misfit Nation. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and share the link as much as possible. If you want to, please become a supporter to help us carry this on. We appreciate you. And as always, till next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling. Because we are the Misfit Nation.